Well, Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, brother. So, where are you joining us from?
I am in mid-Michigan.
So, where's that?
Mid-Michigan.
You
Well, it's
said
up
mid
mid.
or
Yeah,
min?
it's in the
Mid. Okay,
middle.
so in the middle of Michigan.
So I'll do this thing. I'm kind of right here, right?
Okay, you
Yeah,
got wolves
lower
there?
lower peninsula. We do now. In the UP, we do. We have
Uh-huh.
wolves, and they're
Yeah.
kind of a problem up there, but not down here, as far as we know.
And is that because where you live is like more fragmented, uh, as
It's
far as
definitely,
properties?
yeah, more populated area.
Uh-huh.
I don't think they would allow them down here, but they allow them in the UP. It's much more, like wilderness up there.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was just reading your bio. You had to swim through Nashville as a singer-songwriter after college.
Yeah, I had a stint. I was doing singing songwriting down in Nashville. Took that seriously for a while. Wound up moving back to Michigan. So I'm originally from Michigan. That's where I grew up.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Hunting, went to school up here and everything. Grew up here. But did that for a while. Wound up coming back, and that's when I started doing like outdoor writing and stuff. And so actually, I think that was a huge part that helped me with my writing was actually just the craft of songwriting, believe it or not, because it's something you have to do. Like it's very difficult to do if you think about it. Like a lot of people think writing a song is easy, and if you think about it, you've got to compact a whole story into just a few lines, like 28 lines.
Uh-huh.
It's got to be real exact. So I think that craft kind of helped me and get into the writing, which I do quite a bit now.
Yeah. So if I go on Spotify, can I find any of your music on there?
There might be a few songs, yeah, like kind of demo type things. I was doing some country stuff. Some stuff got published, nothing huge, but like some Christian stuff got published too, and just some random stuff. So you
Nice.
might find a couple of things out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to look it up. So you do obviously a lot of writing for various publications. The article we're going to discuss today is from Field and Stream. You write for other entities as well, and then you do the Dear IQ podcast.
Yep.
So how long have you been doing that?
The DRQ podcast has only been a couple years. I've been writing for about 12 years, just freelance for various magazines. My day job is I'm a teacher, so I've been a science teacher for 23 years. So
Oh,
I,
wow.
I, I do a lot going on. I guess keeps me pretty busy.
What age kids are you teaching?
High school, yeah. So this year I taught
Okay.
chemistry and physical science, but I've
Huh.
taught pretty much every science over the years.
I had a teacher, uh, physics teacher at Baylor. His name was Dr. Packard. My parents had him when they were there. He was like in his 80s when I was there, and
Wow.
he graded everything on a curve. I mean, there's no way you could pass his test.
Right.
So, if you got like a third of the questions right, you got a B. I never went to the class. I just guessed, like
Right,
what
right.
I mean, like I couldn't understand it even. I did go to class sometimes, but it was like my freshman year. Yeah, oh yeah, Packard physics. It was legendary. He was one of those dudes who, if enemies ever attacked the United States, the government would come and collect him and take him to a bunker somewhere.
Right, for his brain.
That's how
Yeah.
smart he was. Yeah.
Yeah, and college professors are renowned for like not being good teachers. Like they're just like so smart or whatever. They're just like, okay, you got to do this, teach this
Yeah.
class, but they don't teach real well. So it's definitely a different environment like in high school teaching. Like
Hmm.
you kind of trying not to do that basically, but
Yeah. He would be like, "Why is every answer on your Scantron C?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but somehow I still got a C, so it worked out." Uh,
right.
but okay. So, what else do you enjoy hunting besides whitetail? I see a photo of duck dog back there.
Actually, no, not ducks. Not ducks.
Well, whose lap is that?
I'm not sure what you're looking at. I don't know. I'm
I see a
mostly white too.
I see a lab on your wall behind you.
A lab right now on my wall.
Yes, look behind you. There's
Oh,
a photo right here. There's a lab
yeah,
there. That's not your
that's
lab.
one of those old tin Remington
Oh, so
advertisements. It's like just
not your lab. Okay.
ambiance. Yeah,
Uh-huh. I
everything else
got it.
around
I
here
got
is
it.
deer heads, deer antlers. I do
Uh-huh.
some fishing. Definitely do some fishing. Definitely focus on deer though. A little bit
Yeah.
small game stuff, but yeah, it's like the
Mhm.
duck and goose stuff is in the fall. So I guess a long time ago I just chose deer, and it's one of those things.
Yeah.
Hard to do both real
Uh
well.
no, maybe that's why well, I'm a pretty good duck hunter, a pretty average deer hunter, I guess, but I don't know. I spend more time deer hunting than I ever have, just being in this business. Like, average. I God bless Kent Cartridge. They're a wonderful sponsor of the show, but most of my sponsors are more related to big game stuff. So
Gotcha.
I tend to be doing that more often, which I love. It's like, well, which kid do you like most? I don't know. I love them all, uh, but I know which one I like better. Okay, so what states do you hunt besides Michigan, or do you pretty much stick around, mid Michigan during the season?
Yeah, it's mostly Midwest. So as a teacher, the good thing is I'm off right now in the summer. Great. But in the fall I don't get time off. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
weekends, short trips. So I hunt Michigan a lot, and I hunt a lot of public in Michigan. I hunt Ohio, which is about a 5 hour drive from me. And then I'll try to do maybe one more state. Like last year I did Kansas, which is pretty far drive, but I'll do it
Mm-hmm.
like over like a Thanksgiving or something. Um, I've done Missouri before, stuff like that. So, but it's got to be like a weekend trip usually,
Mm-hmm.
at least right now while I'm teaching. So, uh,
Yeah.
pretty local, I guess.
Okay. And you mentioned public, so most of your hunting is on public land?
Yeah, in Michigan it is. In Ohio right now, I have access just by permission to a couple private pieces, so that's nice. But yeah, Michigan, it's a lot of public. I spent a lot of time scouting and figuring that
Uh-huh.
out, and I've been doing that pretty much since I got back from Nashville. So it was about 2010. I've really been primarily public land, which is a huge learning curve, right? But been doing pretty good
Yeah.
at that once you figure it out, or once I figured it out.
Mm-hmm. So, what's the biggest buck you've shot on public land?
Biggest buck. Good question. A few years ago, I
And I don't
shot
know
one.
what size bucks. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
what's a good size buck for mid Michigan? That's totally a regional thing.
it is. It totally is, and that's good to quantify. So growing up, a good buck is like a 100 or 110. Now
Seriously? Wow.
you,
Okay.
yeah, it's a little better
That's like
now. So
Florida.
yeah, well, a lot of it is we had so many hunters, and that's decreasing everywhere, right? But so many
Yeah.
hunters that the deer just can't get age on them, and so
Yeah.
now they are a little more with more, QDM mentality getting in, and there are less hunters. But a couple years ago, I shot a 140 on public. It was a 4 year old. That's like a
Nice.
top 10% deer. That's
Uh-huh.
pretty rare up here. So if you can get something over 120, that's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, you could get a 140 pretty much anywhere. But it's a good buck anywhere, right? Like there's nowhere I
Yeah.
mean, Florida, you probably aren't going to shoot a 140. Um, but short of that, man, you might be able to shoot a 140-inch deer wherever. And every hunter would be like, a 140, that's a great deer.
Yeah.
You know,
Decent deer. Yeah.
no one's
Yeah.
passing that up. Well,
Well,
for
some
you, it's a
people
great
would.
deer.
Some people would. But
Okay, well,
yeah.
like South Texas, you might pass up a 4-year-old 140. You would because,
Yeah.
oh wait, there's a 6.5-year-old 170 that might come in. So
Right.
or in Ohio where you hunt, in the Midwest, different
Yeah.
different
It's
ball game.
really dependent. Really dependent for sure.
I've never shot a whitetail deer on public land.
Really.
Confession, yeah, never. I've killed elk, mule deer, black bear on public land. But being from Texas, we don't have a lot of public land.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, and B, I did draw a whitetail Texas through the Texas big game hunts. I did draw a whitetail hunt one time in the hill country and thought I really put in because they said they had exotics. And we go to the orientation
Mm.
and they're like, "Oh yeah, we saw an Aoudad ewe about 3 months ago." And when you're reading the booklet, it's like Aoudad, axis deer, all these other ones, and I'm like, "Sweet." And then I get there and it's like, what a letdown. And then it rained the entire weekend,
Mm.
and I didn't even see a deer. So that's my experience hunting whitetail on
Gotcha.
public
Yeah.
land. But I do have multiple leases, Oklahoma and Texas.
Oh, nice.
Spent a lot of time chasing them. But private land deer can humble you just like public land deer.
Yep, for
They
sure.
can figure you out. Big bucks get big for a reason, whether it's public or private. And none of them seem to respond to pressure well at all. So,
Nope.
you bow or rifle hunt primarily?
Mostly bow. I mean, I do both. I'll take advantage of what I can, but bow is the majority of the seasons I can hunt. And it's just the best hunting, right? Especially in Michigan. As soon as gun season hits, it's like, okay, that first day, maybe, and then like the deer have really figured it out, right? So unless you have the
Uh,
spot that's like the magnet of, the best cover in the area, and uh that first day is kind of it, to be honest. So
really?
gun season's kind of tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, I don't have anything to compare that to. Uh, Oklahoma's kind of that way because they have like a 10-day rifle season.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember sitting the first time I ever leased property in Oklahoma, that first opening day. And I'd hunted all bow season, and then here comes rifle season. And being from Texas, rifle season opening day is a big thing. But when you have a short season like that, dude, I mean, I lost count at the gunshots at like 25. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's a wonder a deer would ever step out of the woods again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And in Michigan, they've got more and more liberal, and not to get going into this too much, but now, so it used to be a 2 week gun season. Now they extend it to like a month,
Mm,
like a whole
mm.
month. And yeah, so it's a lot of pressure.
So that's interesting. And I was telling you before we started recording, Dr. Steve Damaris, who was partners with, who's the guy that you visited with,
Bronson Strickland. Yeah.
Bronson Strickland. So they're
MSU
partners,
there.
yeah, at Mississippi State. He was telling me that, and maybe this is why your wildlife department did this, but he was saying that they want hunters to kill more deer. But
Oh, yeah.
he said the deer hunter in Mississippi, the average deer killed, the number of deer killed is 1.5. And it doesn't matter if they extend the season,
Yeah.
if they tell you can use a different weapon. He's like, because of all other extenuating circumstances, whether you give them more time or not, they're going to kill their 1 to 2 deer and they're just going to call it a season.
Right.
But these DNRs want you to whack as many deer as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
southern Michigan, it's a big issue. Like the doe population's kind of getting out of check because we went from in 1998, I think was our high. We had 900,000 hunters. So probably just behind Texas. Texas is the biggest. I think behind it was
Yeah.
Michigan, right? And now it's like just over 500,000. That's a huge
Yeah.
drop the last, less than 30 years of hunters. And
Yeah.
so in these areas in southern Michigan, the doe population just like exploded, and they're extending seasons and stuff, and it doesn't work. Like, yeah, people just, I got a freezer this big, and once I fill it, like, why would I shoot more deer? And so they're struggling to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a trophy hunter too, so I have no problem saying that. I will continue to hunt. I'll fill the freezer, and then if I haven't shot a big buck, yeah, I'm gonna keep hunting until the season's over. But I'm probably
Yeah.
not gonna going back to that number. Like I'm not gonna just keep stacking up does just to do it.
Yep.
So the freezer is only so big, and I'll be honest, I like elk better than whitetail anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing against whitetail; it's good, it's great, but
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's better. There's better.
Yep.
um. So, well, let's talk about this article that was in Field and Stream. It's titled "We Know Bucks Can Disappear. Now we know where they go." We've all had these bucks. I think of one on a 600-acre property I leased in Clay County that he would actually only show up during the season. Where he was, the rest of the year, I have no idea. He was there 2 years in a row, and then opening day disappeared. Nobody ever saw this buck on the hoof, but I have lots of photos of him. And my landowner found him. I had actually gotten off the lease since then. 2 years later, he found him in a creek bed.
Mm.
I think somebody shot that deer from the road He was probably in the wheat field where I had a camera. I think the day before the season, somebody poached him and never found him because he was, I would guess, 5.5, could have been 6.5, 175 to 185-inch deer, somewhere in that range. Incredible for that area.
Yeah.
The kind of buck that if somebody would have shot him legally, everyone would have known about it because they
Right.
would have been so proud. It was like, look, I got him, you know? Yeah, and then he found him, you know, white antlers, squirrels have been chewing on him. It was so disappointing, you know. But kind of closure, at least I think, you know, literally the day before
You
the
know what
season, I'm
happened?
ready to go sit there and hunt
Right.
this mega giant, and then just ghosts. He's a ghost. And so for a long time, I thought, did this buck go somewhere else? Because I didn't know he got poached. But there wasn't even the rut. These bucks weren't fighting. He didn't get gored.
Hmm.
Somebody had to have just shot him, you know. So stuff happens like that. But
Yeah, it
that
does.
buck made me
Yep.
think because he just would appear about October, late October, 2 years in a row, and then about I would say the end of January, just gone. But he wasn't. You still never saw him a lot. Like nobody ever saw that deer on the hoof. Nobody. So very smart buck. But
Yeah, the spot.
yeah. So but we have these deer that will get on camera and then they'll just disappear. They're like a ghost. Where did they go? You know, am I putting too much pressure on him? You start thinking about all these questions, and he's like,
Right.
no, he's gone. He's not on your property. He's just bye bye.
Well, it could be. He could be.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah,
that's what you need to figure out, right? But
yeah,
yeah, so I interviewed Bronson Strickland on my podcast. So we can get into that, but they you do all these really cool studies, right? And you were
yeah,
talking to his associate there. It's cool collar buck study. So now we are putting the pieces together, right? Which
yeah,
is cool because it's always just a guessing game. Like, oh, I get these pictures of these deer, and then all of a sudden I don't. And did somebody shoot them, or did it just get poached or die, or and then maybe they show back up, maybe they don't, right? So it's always this mystery, right? And I think a thing that happens a lot of times is people waste a lot of time hunting deer that they saw once or twice, and then you know they get all excited and then they're just gone, right? But they just keep hunting them and they could be miles
yeah,
away, right? Living a
uh-huh,
different life over here with their family or whatever. um
yeah,
and so that was interesting. We talked about that, and they're finding. So what they found was that, and this is just me citing their studies, and then I went in and
right,
it kind of gave like 4 tips, right, based on this. Okay, what does this mean for us hunters? But what they found was that, yeah, some bucks, because of the GPS told them this, are what they call
yeah,
sedentary. About 2/3 have a one home, right? And the ranges are different depending on the buck and the situation and the terrain and all that. But let's say it's around a square mile, 640 acres, and all those pings were like in one spot, and you can just see like this blob of GPS data points. They call those sedentary. They have one home. And then
uh-huh,
about a third of them were what they call mobile bucks, and they had two distinct home ranges that could be miles apart. So part of the year they're living over here, part of the year they're living over here. Um, and then within that, some bounced back and forth like randomly all the time, and some were like half over here and half over there. So there's these mobile bucks, about a third, that just lived in different spots. So
uh-huh. Yeah, he even had names for the mobile category called the ones that would ping back and forth between ranges,
yeah,
bouncers, I think,
bouncers,
and
yeah,
then the ones that would literally pack their suitcase and just go somewhere else for months on end. He called them shifters.
yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's just interesting to know that, yeah, you could be hunting a deer that just packed up and left and is, on the other side of the county. Because some of them went up to like I think 18 miles or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Might be 2 miles away,
Mm-hmm.
might be 18 miles away, but you could be wasting a whole season, on a ghost basically. Or you could see him showing back up. And I gave like a short story of mine in there of a buck I shot in Ohio that, so one year, and I'll just kind of tell the story as like an
Yeah.
example, but so I think it was, I'll get my years right, 2020 or 2021, I shot a big buck in Ohio early November, big 16 point, and I still had my camera down there in that spot, and it was kind of this saddle on a ridge, so it was like a crossing spot. And then the next week, I kept getting these pictures of this really high, big neck, tight rack buck. And I was like, he just showed up out of nowhere. I'd never seen him before. He just showed up, was there for a few days, and then never saw him again. Right. And so I was like, okay, that looks like a good buck I'd shoot this year. But if he's around next year, it's a real good buck, right? And so I was like, well, if there's nothing else early in the season, I'm gonna bet that that deer is gonna be back there at the same time next year, right?
Yeah.
He's just gonna repeat this pattern. And so the very next year I was there, and it happened to be at the I think like Halloween, like that weekend. So I went down there, I sat in that same stand that first morning. I happened to look back over my right shoulder about 9 in the morning, and here he comes. He comes walking up right to me. He walked under me, and I didn't put this in the story, but I actually passed him because there was a bigger buck on the property. So I passed this
Huh.
buck up at like 8 yards. At like 15 yards, he hit a scrape, and he's like, as he's walking away, I was like, that was probably really dumb of me to do, right? Uh, but I passed him up, and immediately, pretty much regretted it.
Yeah.
But then the next day, and this gets into like, I'll talk about, patterning bucks or building a profile on a buck in a second here. But
Mm-hmm.
the next day, I went back to that same stand, and I was like, if I see him again, I'm going to shoot him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, at 9 in the morning, he chases this doe up out of a ravine on top of the ridge. And it was pretty open up there. So I could see real well. I could see in some spots a couple hundred yards, really open. And he's guarding this doe up there. And I was stuck on stand all day from 9 in the morning till dark, just watching them all day long. He chased off. He was super aggressive. He chased off about a dozen other bucks. And he
Oh
was just
wow.
he was just all around me. And there were several times I like almost got shots, but it just didn't work out. And I never got a shot at him that day, but he was a super aggressive buck. Um, I had to go back home, never got a shot at him. A day or two later, I get a cell cam picture about 200 yards from there of him, and one of his tines is gone. Like he was fighting
Oh yeah.
so much, he busted it off. And so I actually shot him in January. I went back down there, had to refine him. He was on the other side of the property, had to refine him and shot him like in the late muzzleload season. So, anyways, but that was an example of a buck that, I don't know for sure that he was a mobile buck, but he displayed a pattern that I was able to pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen him. All of a sudden, he showed up at the exact same time again the next year, right? So it helped me at least get an opportunity at him, and start to get a pattern on him, like what characteristics he actually had. But, anyways, that's just an example of that, and using data to do that, and trying to figure out bucks. Because if what I talk about in the article is, okay, if bucks have different personalities like this, sedentary and mobile, it's good to figure those out and start hunting them based on that, right? You really should hunt them
Mm-hmm.
differently, to have more success.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, um, Doctor Doctor Damaris mentioned this one buck that swam the Mississippi River and would go into Louisiana for essentially the spring and summer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we joked because it's like, well, yeah, of course he's going to swim back across when the Crazy Cajuns deer season opens
Right,
up, and
right.
if it's brown, it's down, right? Like, so then he would come back to Missouri, but it was like 18 miles, and
Yeah,
that's
it's
probably
crazy.
pretty extreme. I doubt most of the bucks, the mobile bucks, travel that far. But what did they give you any indication of like what the average distance was that these bucks were willing to travel to their second
I
home?
don't know. You can actually look up their studies, because they talk about them, and there's I think they
Yeah.
have a whole study you can read about it. Some of them were a few miles. Like I said, from what I read, maybe a few miles to even like 18 miles. Um, Enough that their range at the new place isn't going to overlap where you're hunting, unless you change location type thing.
Uh,
But yeah, and then we talked about reasoning too, like, well, why?
yeah.
Why
That's
do
the
they do
interesting thing.
this? And Dr. Strickland basically said, from as best we know, and they can't say 100%, right? But it's like, from the best we know, it's not for food, it's not for breeding. It's just like some of these deer in their, he said, in the genome and deep in their genome, in the DNA, they just tend to be like this, to be explorers, right? Like people. Some
Uh-huh.
people are more risk averse than others. Some people are real homebodies, they don't leave. Other people like to get out and travel and do all that stuff. And that's kind of where he left it as far as that's what we know. That's what we think.
Huh. I wonder, and I don't know how detailed, like how many years the study was, but I wonder if these bucks start making these excursions as yearlings. Maybe their mom. I don't know. I don't
I
guess
don't
does are
know.
doing the same thing,
Yeah,
or is this something like a mature buck does,
I'm
or
not
is
sure exactly when it starts.
yeah, that would be an interesting thing to
Yeah,
try to dig deeper into the study and find out like at what
right.
age do they start doing this, exhibiting this
Yeah,
behavior.
they did find that all deer make excursions,
Uh-huh.
like for a weekend, right? So even the sedentary buck that has a very defined home range, he'll sometimes sneak away for a couple of days, right? But they always come back, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they separated those two things. Um, this is a sedentary buck; he might take excursions. Does do too, but then the mobile bucks are very much different.
Mm-hmm. So you outlined in the article 4 tips on how to understand a buck's personality and his movement, right? To better try to kill him. So let's run through those.
Yeah. So the first one, and I will say that I don't think it's easy to do, but to try to start to do, right? Because the better you can do this, I think the better decisions you're going to make. The first one would be just to collect meticulous intel, right? So whether it be trail cameras, on the ground, boot scouting, glassing, observation sits, like you got to collect as much information as possible and try to start categorizing bucks. Like, can you pick up on any quirks, when they show, where they show, and start collecting this data, right? And see if you can find any chinks in the armor, anything that'll tell you anything about them to help you catch up to them, and then categorize it. Do you think this is a sedentary buck that's like showing up real repetitively, or is he like showing that he will show up and then be gone for months and months and months? And try to categorize those, right? Because if 2/3 of the bucks are sedentary in one area and a third are just unpredictable, I don't want to hunt the unpredictable ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's a exceptional buck, and we can look at when you might want to do that, but like I want to focus on the high odds stuff, right? So categorizing them with data is, I think, pretty important to do just to help your odds, right?
How,
Um,
I mean, it sounds difficult, right? To, I don't know how many whitetail hunters are literally sitting out there with binos on a day they're not hunting just to observe, you know? But I was going to ask you, this sounds even more difficult to do on public land. Like I could easily do
oh
this
yeah,
on my deer lease, but to actually collect this intel on a specific buck on public land where who knows how much pressure other hunters are putting on them, that
right.
seems like that would be very difficult.
Yeah, it's harder. I mean, trail cameras help. There was a buck I was on last year up here that I had information from the year before, and I was predicting where he would be the next year at the same time. And I didn't get him. I shot a different buck, but I was very accurate in his behaviors, and he
Uh-huh.
was still alive. Right? Yeah, a lot of deer get shot, so that that's the hard part. If they get shot, then it's like you got to start over, right? But yeah, in areas where you can do that, trail cameras are a huge help to do that. At least try, right? And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not, it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing, but the more you can do that, the better information you have, the better decisions you can make, right? I'm not going to hunt a deer that's dead or that is showing me tendencies that would lead me to believe that he's very unshootable by me, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to like, oh, I get this trail cam picture at midnight and guys get real excited and they start hunting that deer there. Well, that has not showed you that that deer is killable, right? Uh, if he's showing midnight where you can hunt, it means he's living somewhere else, right? So,
So I'll give you an example. My buddy Jamie, that was on this deer lease that me and a bunch of guys are just getting off of. They're selling the property. He shot this 10 point last year. Well, this 10 point was showing up at my feeder at midnight,
Mm-hmm.
between midnight and 2 a.m. Every night he was there. Every night, every night, every night. I'm like, cool. Now please show up during the daytime. Well,
Right.
no. He was making his little jaunt over to my area. But he was living by Jamie's setup, and Jamie shot him. And
Yeah. How far away
he
was
brought
that?
him like this was 4,000 acres. It was a good, it was almost 2 miles probably. It
Oh wow. Yeah.
was far, right?
Yeah.
Like for a buck,
Mm-hmm.
but he was traveling there from, he was living by Jamie,
Yeah.
you know, and then coming over to have a snack by me.
Right.
But I was hoping like this buck's gonna slip up. He's gonna slip up. But at the end of the day, once Jamie shot him, especially, I was like, I was never gonna kill that deer,
Right.
you know, unless
Yeah.
the rut
So.
came and he changed. This was pre-rut. You
Right.
know,
Right.
our opening day is the first weekend in November. Rut really picks up mid-November through the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And so his pattern was, that was his, just his regular routine, that rut hadn't changed it. But yeah, I was never killing that deer. Of course, Jamie shot him.
Yeah. And the more of that you know, the less of
Mm-hmm.
that you do, right? Because there's only so many
Yeah,
days of the season, and you don't want to sit out there, wasting your time. So.
I never really thought, like, I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to kill this deer. I was hoping when
Mhm.
things fired up and doe started going to estrus, he would, you
Right.
know, do something different. But by then he was already dead. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
So yeah, trying to do that, trying to collect intel. For example, that buck that I shot, that 10 point, like he showed me he'd show up at a certain time of year.
yeah,
That was, information. He also showed me he was super aggressive. So one thing I could have done with that was to try to challenge him, right? He was a very
mm-hmm.
dominant buck. He showed me he would fight. I saw him drive all these deer away. He busted off a tine, right? So I could have tried to challenge him and probably had success doing that if I couldn't have any other way, right? So those are just things to try to get to help out.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes into like basically what I call buck profiles, right? So you're profiling deer, you're collecting this information to make decisions. And I try to encourage people to make decisions on data, right? Like not get emotionally wrapped up in the situation and, emotional decisions of I want this or I feel like this or whatever. It's like, what is the deer actually showing you, right? Um, and so you start making those profiles of that data, that information to start saying, okay, this is one I can actually hunt. And if it's, like a sedentary buck, you start figuring out his home range. Where is he showing? Where is he showing in daylight? And then you can just kind of use your information to say, okay, in the best situation, if I know these things about him, like I'm going to hunt on the first day that's the best situation for him to show. Like maybe it's a, you know, uh, cold front coming in. Maybe it's up here, it'd be like the pre-rub, be like late October, and you can really start stacking the odds in your favor if you know things about a deer, right? For the mobile bucks, it's more like the opposite. It's like, okay, you got to ignore them or you're going to waste your time unless you have the historic knowledge that from year to year, right? Like
Yeah.
that deer you saw that, okay, he's showing up at this time. So I'm going to ignore him until it's this time again. And then I'm going to hunt him where he, has proven to me he will show at a date and time and try to stay ahead of him that way and meet him up there. Right. And so you can do from year to year with those mobile bucks if you can start getting that historical data. So those are just kind of two separate ways to look at them and categorize them and just maximize your hunting. And if you're stuck on one property, that gets a little harder. But if you have multiple properties and you have different deer categorized, you can just bounce from one to one to one and have a pretty good season and opportunities at deer if you have that information and know it.
So that 16 pointer that you shot in Ohio, did you have any history with him?
That year I did. So
And what did he
early,
score?
he's like around 160 or so. He had like a
Nice.
lot of small stuff. He had like, triple brow tines,
Oh,
and it just a nice buck. And
yeah.
Yeah, he was early August. He was showing in daylight, like right by the landowner's house. And I was like, okay, yeah, this could be good. I don't want to get too excited though, because their season's like starts in late September. He showed through August, and then I'll try to keep this story short, but I get there in September and check that camera, and it just failed. So I had no data
Mm,
there. I had cameras around the property. I'm like, I'll check these, see if he showed up. Was on none of those. So I didn't know. I didn't know if he was still there or not. I hunted that weekend, didn't see him. So I stayed out. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stay out of here. I'll assume he left. I'm not gonna chase, a deer that maybe took off.
yeah.
Uh, with that summer fall shift thing, he maybe shifted somewhere else, right? Um, so I went back in, it's been late October, did a hunt, and I had an encounter. I didn't see him, but I know it was him down in this valley. There was a doe down there. I heard some uh, scraping of, rubbing up a tree. Something big was really just raking a tree down there. And I snuck out. And that evening, right after I left, he showed up on a camera at that stand I was talking about earlier. He showed up there, and it proved to me, I'm like, okay, he's still alive and he's active in daylight. I'm pretty sure he was below me tonight in that valley. And so I went back the next morning, right that next morning, hunted that spot, and he showed up, and that's when I shot
Oh,
him.
okay.
So, but that was like a thing of, okay, I'm staying out of here. I'm not going to chase a deer until I have the information I need, because I'll probably screw it
Mm.
up, right? So that was more exercise and patience, and then letting him show me, okay, I'm back now. I'm showing in daylight. That's my best chance to go in.
Do you feel like sometimes, and like all three of my kids play club soccer, and everyone's, life is busy for everybody. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to maximize our efficiency with the limited amount of time we can spend in the woods. I think we're probably lucky. We probably get to do it more than a lot of people, but still. But I do question sometimes whether technology kind of takes away from the experience. And is it a catch
Yeah,
22?
it is,
And
I
then Stealth
think.
Cam's a sponsor of mine. I love Stealth Cam. Like, and
Right.
and I rely on them to
Right.
to make me a more efficient with my time in the woods. And
Yeah.
but I do think maybe certainly the old timers would cringe, be like, "What? You guys don't go hunting until you see it on camera
Yeah.
first?" Like,
Yeah, it depends on what you want, right? If you want to be
right?
efficient, if you want to step it up, I mean, use
I
cameras,
want that, right? I mean,
and,
most of us
and
do, but
and a lot of, I'd say too, like the visual. It's more of like a visual proof, right?
mhm.
Seeing a deer. Last year, I saw a buck that I didn't even know existed one day, but it's that visual proof on stand, like, oh, that deer's daylight active. It's where I can hunt him. You
Mhm.
go back in there. So getting that, so trail cameras help. But yeah, I mean, some people make that argument. I think it's a good argument. And they just want to go in and hunt, or just read the sign, in the old way. Those are good skills to have for sure, because it all adds up, right? It's all parts of the
Right.
puzzle. Um, but yeah, some people like the not knowing, like, oh, I saw
Yeah.
a big rub. I wonder what that is. I'm gonna, or scrape. I'm gonna hunt here, and maybe it'll show up, and that
Yeah.
is exciting. Yeah, that is. So
But I get excited when the buck on camera comes in too. So like,
right, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, all right. So what is the third thing that you list there in the
Uh, I,
article?
I kind of mentioned which was basically just focused on the home bodies, right? So
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah,
just,
yeah.
again, the odds, like if almost 70% of deer are the sedentary and they kind of have a home range, those are the easier ones to pattern and target, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the rut, it's kind of lottery, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, don't waste time on 30% of deer that are unpredictable, right?
Yeah.
Try to, focus on the ones that make sense, if you want to up your odds. That was number three.
Yeah. And then the mobile meetup is the last one.
Yeah, and so that was basically the historical data, right? Can you
Yeah.
accumulate historical data that tells you from year to year, right? Like that one 10 point I had an opportunity at. they wound up shooting later. But it was he showed up this day within a couple day window. Usually deer will like repeat those patterns. It's just like
Like
they're like
almost
on a
to the
clock.
day.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like on a
Yeah.
clock, and it's crazy. But if you see that and that deer lives to the next year, if you plant yourself there, you probably see them. You probably
Yeah.
see them. So, um, holding off on mobile deer if you can, if you think they are that, until that certain date, historical data tells you to go in and hunt them. That's really high odds chance of that. Otherwise, focus on the sedentary ones.
Hmm. Yeah. I told Steve this. I've got a buddy who's he's a state trooper. He has a lot of. I don't know if he actually is out there, you know, protecting us or like doing his job, but he's damn sure knocking on doors and getting access
Oh
to good
yeah,
hunting property. Tarif, and he shot. It was I think a 194 this fall,
wow.
and where I live is archery only. There's only
In
four
Texas, there,
counties in
yeah,
yeah. There's only four counties in Texas that are archery only. They're all right here in North Texas in the DFW area. And he had that buck on camera last year, but he was busted off. And the buck just he's had this property for 5, 6, 7 years, had it a long time. And this deer showed up like late November, but he was busted off. So he's like, he passed on him thinking that could be a 200-inch deer next year, just based off of his mass and his
yeah,
width and everything. So he's like, he's passing on a 170 he has living on the property. It's a one buck county. So he's passing on this deer on the hope that that other buck shows back up. And I'll be damned if he didn't show up 2 days from the day that he saw him the year before. And he goes in there and he kills him the second day that the buck showed up.
yeah,
All of that based on predicting that this was
right,
one of those mobile bucks. Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of crazy how they do that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. But just an example there. I mean,
right, yeah,
and to shoot one that big, like and it would have been at 200. Actually, had a busted tine that he had a picture of it the day
man.
before. It had the tine. He
Uh,
shot it the next day, and he told me he brought the buck in studio. We did a
uh,
an interview about it and him hunting that deer, and he was like, "I'm going out there. I'm going to find that tine because Boone and Crockett will count it if you can actually find it."
oh, okay. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
oh,
So
did he
he
find
never
it?
found it. No, he didn't find it. He didn't find it.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um. So in your time as a writer that focuses on whitetail deer and more importantly a hunter who's in the field chasing these things that we love nonstop throughout the fall, what is the thing that I would say or that you would say you've learned in your experience that has helped you become the best hunter you can be? And it's a very broad question, but like just one thing that like
yeah,
maybe outside of the box, like um and obviously what we've talked about today is it's very important. You want to be a better hunter? Well, understand deer,
yeah.
understand how they're
Understand, dear.
moving, where they're going.
I'll say this. I've said this on my podcast a lot, but it isn't a thing I've learned about deer, but it's helped me become a better hunter, and that is writing. So writing articles or even just journaling, if you don't want to write articles, it's fine. But having a journal where you, after as many hunts as possible, every hunt, if you can, just document what happened and ask the question why. Like, why did this go down like this? Good, bad, or otherwise, and trying to figure that out. Like the more you can do that and put those pieces together, you become a better hunter real quickly because uh, you're answering that question, right? If you can't answer
Yeah.
that question, or you can't answer the question why before you go hunt somewhere, like, well, why am I hunting here now? If you can't answer that, you haven't thought about it enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think writing or journaling is just a big step to becoming better quicker. Like it really is.
Mm. Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and then also going back to what we've talked about, like there's that historical data that now you have documented and go back and look at it and be like,
Right.
well, the
Yeah.
weather was doing this day, and then all
Exactly.
of a sudden it stopped raining, and then I saw a bunch of movement, or whatever it
Yep.
is, But then you can help really predict the future and what deer are going to do.
Yeah. You can
Uh,
replicate the things.
Mm-hmm.
that work.
What state have you not hunted that you want a deer hunt?
Iowa.
Iowa.
Iowa, yeah. I bought my fifth point this year, so maybe next year.
Is that about what it takes? Six to.
Well, it depends on the unit. Yeah, I think the
Uh,
good units it's like around 5 points or so.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to bow hunt
And
at
then what
least.
is, yeah, what is that for a non-resident? What is that like in Iowa? I don't have any points in Iowa, so I'm kind
You
of
mean cost wise or
no, no, just like what is the
or
season? And would it be on public land or would you be knocking
oh
on?
yeah, yeah.
Imagine knocking on doors in Iowa would be a waste of time, but you never know.
I don't know. I might go out there. So what I'd probably do next summer is go out there for a week or something and scout public
Mm,
land, try maybe knock on some doors, but at least get an idea of areas that I can go back out in the fall. And the zones I'm looking at are probably I can probably do in a weekend. It'd be a tough weekend, but I can get out there, right? So
mm,
um that's my idea. But I'm not counting on private, so it'd be yeah, basically public.
uh-huh. Okay. Um, yeah, I have not. I've one state that, and I'll say it. I don't care. One state that I've been starting to collect whitetail points. And actually, you can shoot a mule deer or whitetail in South Dakota.
Oh yeah.
I flew into Rapid City for a Nebraska whitetail hunt, and so flew into Rapid City, which is in southern South Dakota. Drove south into Nebraska, and I'm driving, dude. I'm seeing all these river drainages and just deer
Yeah.
everywhere, mule deer and whitetail. There's trees, then you're looking at white, and I'm not kidding. I saw a 160-inch whitetail buck just standing off the side of the road in these trees, just looking at me. I was like, "Holy crap! How do I hunt these things?" So yeah, I mean,
How many
I've got
points does it take to
I
draw
think it's
there?
like, I think it's like three, two or three.
Oh really?
It's not a lot.
I thought it might have been over the counter, but huh. Okay.
Yeah, there might be units where you can, where I want to hunt,
Okay.
and I forget the river valley there. Uh, no, you have to draw. I don't know if you can get an. I don't think you
Gotcha.
can get an over the counter tag in
Okay.
southern South Dakota.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think you probably could at one point in time, but because of people like us, like we're saying now, like the cat's out of the bag. So it's
Yeah,
like any
everybody's
other
doing
thing,
it.
dude. Like Oklahoma keeps sticking it to non-residents, raising their fees, and I've got a 200-acre farm that's like 45 minutes from the house, just across the Red River. But now it's $700 to hunt one season. So if I want to just bow hunt, $700, and then if I want
Yeah,
to
it's
add a rifle tag, oh, $500. And then if I want to muzzleloader hunt, another $500. You're at
mm,
$1,700 to do all 3 seasons. It's just
man,
like
yeah.
it's insane. Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
do any? So I asked you about. Well, I thought that was your duck dog back there, but obviously you're not. That's
it's
just
a
that
print.
adds to the ambiance of the
Yes, yep.
podcasting studio there. Do you do any Western big game hunting, mule deer, elk, anything like that?
I'd love to. I elk hunted twice and it was not
Uh,
successful. This was like 2019. It was like
okay.
18, 19, somewhere in there out in Utah. And the only reason I was able to do it is because our, my teaching calendars those years started late, like Labor Day late,
Uh,
and they had an early season. So I got like a week of a hunt in. It was great, but then now they moved it back. We start like mid-August. So
mm,
I don't know what I can hunt,
yeah.
early August. I'd love to do more elk hunting, but it just right now.
Pronghorn might be the only thing. There's some
Mm,
seasons open August, but
yeah.
I don't know. Sitting at a water hole, sweating my tail off, waiting for a pronghorn,
Yeah.
not my idea of fun. Like I want to be out moving around, and I'm not knocking you if that's your cup of tea. Like by all
Never done
means,
it.
do it.
Never done it.
But yeah, it's not. It doesn't really seem that appealing to me. Well, right on. Well, cool. So, what is? I mean, obviously, the podcast is Deer IQ. You can probably find that wherever you listen to
Yep.
stuff. Do you have your own website?
Yep. DRIQ.com. You can check it out there. I've got other stuff, some services we do too, like land plans. I got a workshop coming up this summer, 2-day workshop for guys to check out if they're really looking to, up their game as a hunter. We go through an intensive 2-day workshop up there. But so just some different things they can check out there. But yeah, on YouTube, look up Deer IQ or deeriq.com. And wherever you listen, You can find it there.
So, okay, last question. And we've talked a lot about collecting data on these big bucks. What is your thought on shed hunting? You see all these what have you seen the videos of the opening day and like well you they call them utards for a reason I guess or or like Wyoming where now there's shed hunting seasons and all these people are lined up, some on horses, some in pickups, and they open
I
the
haven't
gate and then
seen
it's just
that.
a
That is
mad
crazy.
rush. Yeah, it's insane.
Huh.
um
Well, I mean, are they selling them because they're worth money? Is that part of the
s-
reason?
some of them sell them, some of them just pile them up in their garage, like
Yeah.
I
Well, it's a big thing for whitetail too. In Michigan, I don't really do it because like I'm gonna find like spikes and stuff like that if I find anything.
yeah
Um, I think there is some value. I think it seems like a little overdone. But if I was in Iowa and I was collecting these big sheds and it gave me information,
yeah
yeah, I wouldn't obviously be against it at all. I'm more like getting out in the woods in the spring to basically scout from sign from last year. But it has turned into a big thing though, hasn't it? It's
Yeah, it's
kind of
riot,
a
dude. I laugh when I see it. Yeah.
yeah. Do you
Do you
do
do you
that?
turkey hunt?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I took
All
out in the
right. Well, you
spring
can
down
do your
here.
your scouting, your spring scouting while you're turkey hunting.
This is true.
So,
This is true. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I went to Tennessee this year to try to get my first Eastern. We have
Oh.
Rios down here,
Mm-hmm.
and I got an Eastern. And my buddy that went with me, all he got was Lyme disease. So,
Oh gosh,
yeah,
that's not good.
he caught it early,
Okay.
and got on an antibiotic, and he's symptom free. So I think
Good.
that's the key. Like if you get it, you catch it early, you
Yeah.
can eliminate a lot of those potential long term side effects. So
Yeah. Yeah. Ticks are
yeah.
nasty.
Mm-hmm. Well, right on, man. Well, Deer IQ, y'all check it out. I certainly appreciate the time today, Adam, and
Thanks
I'm
for having me
sure,
on, man.
yeah, maybe we'll do it again somewhere on down the road.
For sure.
All right, take it easy.